You know, whenever there's a massive shift in the global economy, it sort of kicks off this Wild West gold
Oh,
rush.
absolutely. We saw it with the internet, right?
Right. And we definitely saw it with the whole AI explosion recently. And right now, we are living right in the middle of it with the green economy.
Yeah. Everybody wants in.
Literally everyone.
Yeah.
Every major corporation,
Yeah.
governments, startups, they are all just scrambling to hire sustainability experts. But that creates a really fascinating and, frankly, pretty massive challenge for you, the listener, and for the job market as a whole, honestly.
Because of the resumes, right?
Exactly. Because when everyone suddenly slacks green expert on their resume, how do you actually prove what you know?
Yeah, it becomes this massive signal to noise problem. And the stakes here are incredibly high.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about greenwashing, right? Like
Yeah.
when it comes to corporate products.
Right, like slapping a little green leaf logo on a plastic bottle and calling it eco-friendly.
Exactly. But what we are looking at today is the fight against greenwashing at the human capital level. It's really about verifying the actual operational competence of the people who are tasked with, well, restructuring our entire global economy.
And we've got our hands on a really fascinating stack of documents today to explore exactly how this is being done. So we're looking at these continuing professional development, or CPD, verified reports.
Right, out of the Think Plus Learning Bank in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
Yes. And our mission for this deep dive is to use these reports to unpack how you quantify, verify, and track sustainability skills in a way that actually, holds up to intense global scrutiny.
And what stands out immediately when you read these documents is that this isn't just a slightly upgraded digital resume.
Far from it.
Right. It's a rigorous technology-backed passport for career readiness. I mean, it actively strips away those self-proclaimed titles.
Which is so necessary right now.
Yeah. Instead, it uses these strict algorithmic methodologies to map a person's documented learning directly to international standards. It fundamentally changes how professional value is measured.
Okay, let's unpack this, because verifying human competence is not like verifying a math equation. Humans are, well, they're messy.
Very messy. We exaggerate.
We do. We fluff things up. So how do these reports actually measure a professional's experience without just taking their word for it?
Well, it starts with an incredibly strict parameter around time. Basically, there is a literal expiration date on your knowledge.
Wait, really? Like milk?
Kind of, yeah. According to the methodology in these reports, the CPD hours and the experience you claim are limited to a rolling window of just the last 5 years.
Wow, just 5 years.
Just 5. Any professional development entries you have from before that 5-year mark are explicitly cordoned off as archived. They do not contribute to your live totals or your eligibility scores at all.
I have to admit, I'm extremely skeptical of that approach. I mean, imagine going to law school and 5 years later someone tells you your degree doesn't count anymore toward your baseline competence.
Right, I get that.
Archiving someone's hard-earned knowledge just because it's 5 years and 1 day old feels really punitive. It's like a credit score where your past good deeds suddenly just vanish from the ledger. Aren't you essentially wiping out someone's professional history?
I see why it feels that way.
Yeah.
And honestly, the credit score analogy is a great way to look at it. But we really have to look at the reality of the field.
Okay, how so?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, environmental engineering, climate science, ESG compliance, these are evolving at breakneck speed. A carbon accounting standard from 10 years ago isn't just old, it is likely completely obsolete.
Ah, see.
Yeah, and relying on it could render a corporation legally non-compliant today.
Okay, so relying on outdated knowledge isn't just a resume faux pas. It's an actual structural liability for a company.
Precisely. That 5-year window enforces a core value of the sustainability sector, which is continuous lifelong learning. It mathematically prevents someone from just resting on their laurels.
You have to actively maintain it.
Right. Now, there is a very deliberate exception built into this algorithm for older professionals, which I think is quite clever.
Oh, right, the seniority bonus. Yeah, according to the methodology, candidates aged 50 and above get a wider window. So they get a 7-year rolling window plus a 2-year seniority bonus.
Which serves a very specific function. It captures institutional memory.
That makes sense.
Yeah, you don't want to penalize a senior director who understands the deep operational history of how a supply chain was built just because they haven't taken a specific certification course in the last 48 months.
Yeah, they have all that tacit knowledge.
Exactly. The algorithm balances that need for cutting-edge knowledge with the undeniable value of seasoned leadership.
But even within that window, How is the algorithm actually judging the quality of the knowledge? I mean, if I sit through a 1-hour generic webinar on recycling versus spending 6 months doing an intensive carbon accounting boot camp.
Right. How does the computer know the difference?
Exactly.
So it computes these theme scores by extracting context. It doesn't just do a simple keyword search for the word solar.
Okay.
The system takes the specific titles, the providers of the education, the categorical focus, and the detailed descriptions of every single entry.
That's a lot of data.
It is.
Yeah.
And it cross-references all of that against highly curated industry-standard lexicons. It looks at the rigor of the provider and the depth of the topic.
And to stop people from just logging in and faking a high-level course, there is a really serious layer of cryptographic trust built in here.
Oh, the security features are intense.
Yeah. Every single page of these reports has a SHA-256 document tamper evidence hash printed right in the footer. Plus, there are QR code endpoints.
Right. So if an employer is looking at a printed version of this report,
They just scan that code. It pings the ThinkPlus Learning Bank verification endpoint to confirm the document is completely authentic and mathematically unaltered.
you literally cannot Photoshop your way into a green job.
You really can't. But, okay, once you establish that baseline of cryptographic trust, once the HR manager knows the data is real, verified, and temporally relevant, they still have to digest it.
Which is tough because a verified list of 50 different classes is just a wall of text.
Exactly. How do you make that readable? And that leads us to the visual engine of these reports, which is the Sustainability Theme Profile Radar.
A radar chart.
The radar chart. I love this part because it takes all this dense algorithmic data and turns it into a sheep.
It's very visual.
Very. The system breaks down the entirety of the green economy into 6 specific, color-coded opportunity areas or lexicons. Let's walk through the mechanics of what is actually being measured here. First up is the foundational one, the green economy and green skills.
Right, and this covers what most people traditionally associate with environmentalism. It measures competence in renewables, energy efficiency, the circular economy, biodiversity, and sustainable land use.
It's the physical, earth-based infrastructure of sustainability.
Exactly.
Next is the carbon economy and net zero. Now, for anyone who follows the space, you know this is highly technical. This is measuring a candidate's knowledge of greenhouse gas inventories, carbon markets, offsets, and specifically Scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions. And Scope 3 is the notoriously difficult one, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because you aren't just measuring the exhaust coming out of your own factory. You have to measure the carbon footprint of the external company that sold you the concrete to build the factory in the first place.
And the emissions of the consumer actually using your product down the line.
Right.
That's spot on. Scope 3 requires a massive amount of data modeling and supply chain interrogation.
Right.
So if a candidate spikes heavily in the carbon economy lexicon on their chart, they possess serious hard math analytical skills.
Got it. Then we have the blue economy. This maps skills related to ocean and marine sustainability, coastal resilience, fisheries, water stewardship, blue carbon.
Which is huge.
Yeah, given how much global trade moves by sea and how crucial oceans are as carbon sinks, that makes total logical sense. But then we hit the fourth color, the orange economy, which the report defines as creative and knowledge industries. And I have to pause here.
I figured you might.
I mean, green, blue, carbon, those all map to physical Earth systems. What does orange like, cultural heritage, creative industries, inclusive innovation, what does that have to do with the climate report?
This is perhaps the most sophisticated mechanism in the entire methodology, honestly, because it acknowledges human behavior.
Okay, human behavior.
Yeah. Sustainability is not just an engineering problem. You could engineer the absolute perfect zero-emission mass transit system.
Right.
But if you lack the cultural understanding to encourage people to actually stop driving their cars, or if you don't use the creative industries to shift consumer habits, your perfect transit system just sits empty.
Ah, okay. So the orange economy measures the ability to actually implement these technologies into human society.
Exactly. If we only focus on the hard sciences, the carbon and the green, we get massive tunnel vision.
We miss the people.
Right. By measuring orange economy skills, the system is actively looking for professionals who understand that a truly sustainable future requires communicators, cultural preservationists, and behavioral innovators just as much as it requires hydrologists.
Oh, wow. That context makes the fifth color, HSE and just transition, much easier to understand. So HSE stands for health, safety, and environment, but the just transition part is the real focus here.
Very much so.
This measures a professional's knowledge in social safeguards because as we shift to a low-carbon economy, it has to actually be fair for the workers involved, right?
Exactly. Consider the mechanics of shutting down a coal plant. From a purely carbon economy perspective, it's a massive win.
Big emissions drop.
Yeah. But from a just transition perspective,
Yeah.
you have to ask, what happens to the 2,000 local workers who rely on that plant? Do they have a pathway to the new economy?
Right.
A professional with high skills in this theme understands how to manage the socioeconomic fallout of the green transition.
And then finally, the sixth color is ESG leadership and sustainability reporting. This covers boardroom governance, ethical leadership, stakeholder dialogue, and the actual management of organizational change.
Right.
So, when an HR director looks at a candidate's radar chart, they instantly see their shape. Are they a deep specialist spiking entirely in carbon and ESG leadership? Or are they a generalist with a perfectly balanced hexagon across all six colors?
It is a brilliantly efficient visual heuristic. But a pretty chart is ultimately passive. The real power of this data lies in how it is applied to actual workforce planning.
Which brings us to the gap to role readiness section. Because having a colorful radar chart is nice, but how does it actually get someone a job? The report takes your current verified skills, your specific shape on that radar chart, and explicitly benchmarks you against target roles in the industry. It lists roles like Chief Sustainability Officer, Head of Climate and Decarbonization, ESG Reporting Manager, or Blue Economy Program Lead.
And the output is brutally objective. It calculates your percentage of readiness for these positions and explicitly lists your capability gaps.
I have to stop you there and push back on this because it feels a little too sci-fi. It says, you are 67% ready for a Chief Sustainability Officer role.
Yeah.
How can any algorithm boil down human leadership, strategic vision, and boardroom presence into a clean 67%? What exactly is it measuring to get that highly specific number?
It's an important distinction to make. The algorithm isn't attempting to measure your soul or your charisma in a boardroom.
Okay, good.
It is comparing lexicons. The system has a benchmark lexicon of the exact technical knowledge, frameworks, and exposure a modern CSO must possess based on current global standards.
Got it.
It then overlays your verified 5-year learning history against that benchmark. If the CSO role requires deep knowledge in all 6 colors, but your documented history shows 0 exposure to the orange economy or just transition, the algorithm flags that deficit.
So it might say, you are 67% ready, and your capability gap is explicitly in ESG and sustainability reporting.
Yes. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this transitions sustainability from a vague corporate passion project into a quantifiable, trainable engineering problem.
It acts like a GPS for your career.
Exactly. Historically, an employee might say, oh, I'm very passionate about the environment, and HR wouldn't really know what to do with them.
Right. What does HR do with someone who just, reads a lot of articles about saving the whales?
Precisely nothing. But with this gap analysis, a multinational corporation can run their internal workforce through the system. If they need to build an ESG compliance team by Q3, they find the employees who are 50% or 60% ready.
They can see exactly who is close.
Yeah. They identified the exact capability gaps, say a lack of knowledge in Scope 3 accounting, and deploy targeted precision upskilling to close those specific gaps. No more wasting budget on generic sustainability seminars.
Okay, precision upskilling makes total sense for a company's internal mechanics, but local skills and internal corporate training mean absolutely nothing if they don't align with global compliance.
Absolutely true.
And that brings us to Section 8 of these reports, the International Framework Alignment. This is an intense alphabet soup of global regulations.
There really is an alphabet soup. But this section is where the local professional truly becomes a globally deployable asset. The reports verify alignment with ISO 14024 first.
Right.
Think of ISO 14024 as the international rulebook for the rule makers. It is the global standard that underpins competence-based personnel certification. It proves the methodology of the verification itself is structurally sound.
Then you have alignment with the TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, and the IFRS S1 and S2, which form the investor-grade baseline for general and climate disclosures. This is heavy financial terminology.
It is, but to demystify those, don't worry about the acronyms. Just think of them as the financial world's X-ray machine.
I like that.
Historically, sustainability reports were basically marketing brochures. The TCFD and IFRS force a company to calculate exactly how much money they will lose if a climate disaster hits their operations.
Oh, wow. So they put a dollar amount on it.
Yes. They force climate risk to be treated as financial risk. If a professional's learning is mapped to these frameworks, it means they understand how to talk to CFOs and investors, not just activists.
The reports also map CPD outcomes to various qualifications frameworks like the NQF, NQF, or EQF. These act as academic bridges, mapping this continuous learning directly to recognized national and European qualification levels.
Right.
But the heavyweight here, the one that seems to be driving the entire market right now, is the EU CSRD, the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive.
Yeah, the CSRD is arguably the most disruptive piece of corporate legislation in a generation. It mandates incredibly rigorous sustainability reporting for the European Union. But its true power lies in a specific mechanism. It explicitly includes supply chains.
Walk me through a real-world scenario of how that mechanism works. Why should a professional listening to this in South America or Asia care about a directive passed in Brussels?
Because of what we call the multi-trillion-dollar supply chain contagion effect. Let's say you have a rubber plantation in Malaysia or a lithium mining operation in Chile.
Right, far away from Europe.
Entirely local operations. But their biggest client is a massive German automaker. Because the German automaker is bound by the EU CSRD, they are legally required to report the carbon footprint and the labor practices of their entire supply chain.
Wait, their entire supply chain?
The whole thing. So the German company turns to the Malaysian rubber supplier and says, show us your verified ESG data, or we legally cannot buy from you.
Oh, wow, so they just force their hand.
Exactly. Europe effectively legislated the whole world's supply chain. If that local company in Asia wants to keep their multi-million-dollar contract with Europe, they suddenly need local professionals who understand European framework.
That makes sense.
Therefore, holding a verified portfolio that proves your skills are mapped to the CSRD makes you incredibly valuable. You aren't just a local environmentalist, you speak the universal language of global trade compliance.
That is wild. The legal contagion just spreads across the globe. Now, speaking of the globe, the reports also map learning to the UN SDGs, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. But what I found interesting in the methodology is that they don't just give a candidate a blanket, you support the UN stamp.
Right, it's much more specific.
Yeah, they use keyword adjacency to map the candidate's learning specifically to the 14 most operationally relevant SDGs for sustainability practitioners.
It removes the fluff. It isolates the goals that actually require operational deployment in a corporate setting rather than the broader geopolitical goals.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on one specific term that pops up in the glossary of these reports constantly when navigating this alphabet soup of frameworks. Materiality.
Ah, yes.
It seems to be the linchpin of all this reporting. What is it?
Materiality is the mechanism that prevents corporate exhaustion. The definition is the process of identifying ESG topics that significantly impact a business or its stakeholders. In practice, it means figuring out what actually matters to the bottom line and the environment, rather than forcing a company to report on literally everything under the sun.
Okay, so if you are a software company, the amount of water used in your corporate office break room is not material to your environmental impact.
Right.
But the massive energy consumption of your cloud data centers is highly material. Whereas if you are a global brewery, water sourcing is intensely material to your